There are a lot of questions about reports that the FBI searched Lindsey Graham's home after he was said to be dead. There are those who think the search could lead to important answers and those who say the truth may be very different from what is being said. So, what was the point of the search that was reported? Was there really something strange found, or are the most important stories just guesses? Why was Lindsey Graham's house really searched? And do you think the results will surprise everyone? Watch this movie with us to find out more. What a shocking find was in Lindsey Graham's house. Early reports say that Senator Lindsey Graham died because of a tear in a major blood vessel that was related to his heart. It's thought that he did this because he had heart trouble for a long time. Doctors said that the damage to his heart and blood vessels got worse over time, which eventually caused the fatal tear. Authorities said at the time of the first report that they were still waiting for the final medical results because more tests, such as chemistry, had to be done. Still, early tests showed that heart disease was the main cause of his death. The news of Graham's death spread quickly all over the world and in the United States. His death came so quickly that it shocked a lot of people. Graham was in Congress for a long time and was known as one of the most important leaders in American politics. He was known to say what he thought, be resolute in his beliefs, and work on many important problems that affected both the U.S. and other countries. There were reports that President Trump talked to Graham just hours before he died. The president just got back from a trip abroad where he met with the president of Ukraine and attended the NATO summit. A lot of people who knew Graham well said that he kept working right up until the end. Graham became known for taking strong stands on issues of national security and international relations over the course of his work. He spoke out against Russia and Iran a lot because he thought the United States should stay strong when facing dangers from all over the world. After hearing about his death, leaders from both parties sent each other messages. Graham was praised by former President George W. Bush as someone who knew what was going on in the world and thought that America should stay involved in fighting for freedom and against tyranny. Former Vice President Joe Biden also paid tribute to him. Biden said that over the years, they had many political disagreements, but that they both valued the Senate and thought it was the best way to serve the country. A lot of politicians also talked about their own memories. Some people said it would be very hard to fill Graham's seat in the Senate because he had so many duties and years of experience. Others remembered how nice he was and how he could make people laugh even when things were bad. Some of his friends said that he always had a joke ready and could make people laugh. Not only was he liked for his work, but also for how he treated other people, many people said. Political experts said Graham was part of a group of leaders who lived through many important events in American history, such as the 9/11 attacks in the early 2000s. Those things changed the way he thought about protecting the country. He was sure that America should stop threats before they got to the country. He stayed firm on that idea throughout his career and rarely changed his mind. During the early years of Trump's political rise, Graham continued to back a strong military and thought America should act against its enemies when necessary, even when he didn't agree with other Republicans or President Trump. After some time, he and Trump became close political friends. He didn't change much about how he felt about foreign affairs, though. A lot of people also remembered how Graham dealt with political differences. People told him he could have strong disagreements with senators and still treat them with respect after the debate was over. People knew him for being friends with people who had very different political views than him. A lot of people thought this showed a kind of leadership that isn't seen as much in politics these days. Some lawmakers said they hoped that future leaders would be able to learn from him and keep personal hatred out of political differences. Graham was also known for his support of Israel and belief that the United States should continue to play a major part in the world. Some people didn't like how strongly he believed in American leadership and military action. This was especially true for those who wanted the U.S. to stay out of foreign wars. Still, people who liked him said he never hid what he thought. He never changed his mind about what he believed and defended the same ideas for many years. As soon as the news of his death spread online, fake news and conspiracy ideas sprung up on social media. According to one of the claims, the FBI searched Lindsey Graham's home because there were questions about the toxicology investigation. However, there has been no official word on what was discovered in his home. However, everyone is shocked by the supposed search. People will likely remember Lindsey Graham as a public servant who stuck to his beliefs, talked openly about tough issues, worked with people from both parties, and served the American people for decades. His long career changed the Senate and American politics in ways that will last for a long time. But even though the country cried and leaders paid their respects, there is still one question. What did Lindsey Graham work on in the days before he died? And could those last diplomatic efforts show what was most important to him before he was said to have died? Let's find out more. Lindsey Graham's last attempts to make peace. Senator Lindsey Graham was said to have been fully focused on foreign policy in the days before he was said to have died. People who kept up with his work said he thought there was more important work to do, and he kept talking to world leaders, government officials, and close allies. Reports say that one of his main goals was to help a deal go forward that would bring Israel and Saudi Arabia closer together. He was said to have thought that such an agreement could change the Middle East's future and make the relationship between two major countries in the area stronger. People who knew him well said that he thought this goal was one of the most important things he could help achieve. He apparently thought that peace and cooperation between countries should still be sought, even though tensions were rising in the Middle East. Reports also said that Graham thought a deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia that worked could be important for a long time after the fighting in the area stopped. He supposedly saw it as a long-term victory that could boost safety, strengthen diplomatic ties, and open up new ways for people to work together. People who knew him well say that he stayed very involved in conversations about the problem and kept talking to leaders who had the same goal. It was said that he wanted to see real progress before leaving public service. According to reports, Graham was still doing his job on what would be his last full day. Several news sources said he talked on the phone with President Trump the night before he died. He supposedly told the president about his recent trip to Ukraine during that call. He was also said to have talked about a bill that would put more sanctions on Russia. News reports say that the conversation later shifted to the rising tensions with Iran and the growing worries about security in the Middle East. According to people who were there, Graham was still very interested in these problems and kept giving his thoughts on how the U.S. should respond. Reports say that Graham thought the United States should keep getting involved in world events. He often said that strong international partnerships were needed to protect American interests and help allies around the world during his career. Reports said that he held on to these views until the very end of his life. He reportedly stayed committed to finding diplomatic solutions whenever possible, even though he was working on a lot of important problems at once. He also backed strong national security policies. Shortly after Graham was said to have talked to President Trump, someone who talked to him said they could tell he wasn't feeling well. It was said that the senator admitted he wasn't feeling well. According to reports, the person told him to get medical help right away. Graham allegedly said that he would do it the next morning, after he finished a TV appearance that he had planned. Reports say that he didn't think his situation needed emergency care at the time. Graham was said to have stayed positive even though he wasn't feeling well. There were reports that he even cracked a joke during the call. He is said to have said that he couldn't die yet because he had important things to do. Reports said he talked about 3 big goals that were still on his mind. The first was moving the bill for penalties against Russia forward. The second was dealing with the growing worries about Iran. The third was still trying to help make things better between Israel and Saudi Arabia. People who later remembered the talks said that those words had extra meaning for them because he was said to have died a few hours later. People who supported Graham said that his last words showed how he had been serving the public for a long time. People who knew him said he rarely backed down from tough problems and thought important work should go on even when things weren't clear. People who worked with him say that he never got distracted from policy issues and often looked beyond short-term arguments to bigger foreign goals. They said he thought the choices that were made today could affect events around the world for a long time. As word spread that he had died, many people thought back to the last projects that had taken up so much of his time. One of the most talked about things about his last days was his alleged work to improve relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel. His supporters said that these actions showed how dedicated he was to diplomacy, working with other countries, and protecting the nation until the end. Many people, even those who didn't agree with his political views, knew that he stayed involved in public service and worked on important international problems right up until the end of his life. It is said that Lindsey Graham was still thinking about peace and national security in his last hours. The news of his death spread around the world. What did world leaders, longtime allies, political rivals, and people on social media say? Let's find out. Reactions around the world and online rumors. News about Lindsey. The news of Graham's death spread quickly around the world, and people had a lot of different responses. Although many people were thinking about his work, others started to wonder about how he died so quickly. A lot of claims started going around on social media within hours, but a lot of them were still not true and weren't backed up by public proof. Israel was one of the first countries to say something about the news in public. In a message, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he was very sad about Graham's death. Putin was called a great friend of Israel by Netanyahu and a strong booster of the relationship between Israel and the U.S. He also said Graham was a real hero who stood with Israel for many years when things were tough. Netanyahu said he had lost a close friend and said Graham had always thought the relationship between the two countries should stay strong. Netanyahu says Graham never changed his mind about how dangerous things were for Israel and always thought the U.S. should keep supporting one of its closest allies in the Middle East. As well, many people in Israel remembered Graham for the strong positions he held during his career. He spoke out a lot in support of Israel and its right to keep itself safe from harm. People who supported him thought he knew exactly what the country's security problems were and was never afraid to talk about them. Lots of important people in Israel praised his dedication and said his death was a terrible loss. A lot of well-known people said they would never forget his help and how he was always there for his friends even when things were tough. There were a lot of sad feelings in Israel, but accounts said that things were very different in Iran. Several news sites say that some Iranian state media openly celebrated Graham's death. TV hosts are said to have said mean things because Graham has a history of criticizing the Iranian government and calling for stronger action against it. Some reports also said that accounts that support the government on social media shared pictures of themselves celebrating his death. Reports said the pictures showed Graham as someone who had been taken off a list of people the Iranian government thought were enemies. Reports also said that some of the pictures had warnings on them that said more names could be added later. These stories showed that Graham and the Iranian leadership have had political problems for a long time. Reports also said that after Graham's death, Iran's foreign ministry put out a message. Reports say that the senator's statement showed how tough things had been between him and the Iranian government for a long time. Graham had often called for tougher action against Iran and regularly backed policies that would put more pressure on the leaders of that country. It was said that his death was seen very differently in Iran than by many American and Israeli leaders because of these views. As these reactions went on, a lot of rumors started to spread online. Reports say that a number of people on social media said that Graham may have been poisoned without any proof. Because Graham recently went to Ukraine and has strong political views, other posts supposedly said that Russia or Iran might have had something to do with it. These claims spread quickly on a number of social media sites. However, no verified evidence was shown to the public to back up those claims. They were still just claims made by people online, not confirmed findings from investigators. Reports also said that Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, said the agency would look into Graham's death. Those same stories say that the news of an investigation led to even more rumors on the internet. Some people thought that the investigation was proof that something fishy had happened. However, the stories did not include any official findings that investigators had found proof of poisoning, murder, or involvement from outside the country. At that time, the claims were still not proven. There was also another claim from Russia. Reports said that Russian philosopher Alexander Dugin said that Israel's Mossad, an intelligence service, might have killed Graham, but he didn't give any proof. Reports say that Dugin said that the purpose of such an action would have been to put pressure on President Trump to take stronger military action against Iran. A lot of people shared his opinions online, but they were made without any proof, so they were just claims. While people talked about the different theories, many others told them not to believe every story they read online but to wait for official medical findings. As condolences kept coming in from all over the country, one question remained. How did the people who worked with Lindsey Graham best remember the man who wasn't in the news? Did they think he would leave behind something lasting? Let's find out more. People remember this man for his work. A lot of people in the United States were shocked when they heard that Lindsey Graham had died. Friends, politicians, and people who had worked with him for a long time found it hard to believe that someone who had been so involved in public life was suddenly gone. They said it would be a big loss for the Senate and for American politics in general. President Donald Trump was one of the people who spoke deeply. He said Graham was a great politician who understood things better than most. Trump said Graham was one of the few politicians who could truly unite people, get them behind his ideas, and make tough plans come to life. He is said to have said that many politicians today don't get things done. Graham, on the other hand, could make plans come true. That's one reason why he stayed an important person in Washington for so long. According to people who knew him, John Thune, the majority leader of the Senate, also talked about the loss in public. The news got to him through his staff during the night, he said. He said he was still shocked and it was hard for him to believe Graham was dead. Thune said he couldn't picture going to the Senate and not seeing his longtime friend. He said Graham had become so important to Washingtonians' daily lives that many people just assumed he would be there all the time. He was the most interesting person I've ever met, and they were all very excited about the work they did. But he always had a lot of energy and excitement that made everyone around him feel the same way. Thune says Graham had a lot of power outside of the Senate because he was friendly with leaders all over the world and in the United States. Thune also thought about all the years they had spent together. It is said that they became friends while they were both in the House of Representatives. There were official trips, working on important bills, and time spent together outside of politics that they did together over the years. It was said that they liked hunting, golfing, and going to each other's home states. When people talked about Graham's life, they often talked about the different leading positions he held in the Senate. A lot of people knew him for being very serious about America's safety. He thought that the United States should always be ready for threats and support its allies. He was also known for the work he did with judges and the American court system. People who worked with him say he was very interested in the law and thought the courts were very important for keeping the country safe. Graham is also said to have been the head of the Senate Budget Committee, where he helped get big spending plans passed by Congress. Friends and supporters said he took on every duty with energy and drive. He also supported the pro-life cause, which was something that stayed important to him throughout his career. His supporters said he always stood up for what he believed in and never tried to hide where he stood. There were many people who respected the fact that he was honest about his beliefs, even if they didn't agree with him. Thun said Graham was someone who always had faith in the work he did. Graham never just showed up because it was his job, he said. Instead, he went into each day with a clear goal in mind. Thun says that Graham thought that working for the government should always be about helping the country, not getting special treatment. After it was said that he had died, people started talking about how to best honor his life and work. It was said that leaders were thinking about how to handle the funeral and other public events. It is also said that people talked about whether Graham should be given the rare honor of lying in state at the Capitol of the United States. At that point, it was said that no final choice had been made. Thun said he had talked to Graham's sister and the governor of South Carolina, and they all agreed that the focus should stay on mourning until final plans were made public. On Capitol Hill, people are said to have gathered in quiet ways to remember Graham. Friends, staff, and people from the public put flowers and memorials outside of his Senate office to honor him. A lot of people stopped to honor him and think about the years he had spent serving his country. People who knew him well said that these small actions showed how many lives he had changed while he was in public office for decades. So, how would people who knew him best describe what he left behind? What problems does the Senate have to deal with now that he's not there? How about we take a closer look? A lasting gift that people will remember. When lawmakers talked about Lindsey Graham, a lot of them said that the way he worked with people was even more important than the views he held. Friends and coworkers said he never avoided tough conversations and was always ready to talk to people who didn't agree with him. They said that Graham thought important work could still be done if people were willing to listen to each other, even when there were heated political arguments. Reports say that method helped him make friends with people from both parties. He was often seen as one of the most powerful Republicans when it came to national security. According to Senate Majority Leader John Thun, many Democrats respected Graham's willingness to negotiate when the country faced big problems. But lawmakers from the other side of the aisle also turned to Graham because they knew he would talk about tough issues seriously. Thun is said to have said that Graham was brave and never backed away from tough problems. He would rather deal with them directly and try to find workable solutions. His friends also remembered that he had a great sense of fun. People said he could make them laugh even in tense meetings, which helped calm them down when they didn't agree with something. People who knew him say that this skill made him easy to talk to and helped him make lasting connections in Congress. A lot of people thought that his attitude was one reason he was so important for so long. After news spread that he had died, flowers and small memorials were put outside of his Senate office. People from the staff, other lawmakers, and tourists all stopped to pay their respects. Some people stood quietly to think, while others left flowers to thank him for all the years he had worked for the public good. These small actions showed that Graham had made a difference in many people's lives during his long political career. It was also said that leaders started to talk about how to best honor him. It is said that they talked about possible funeral plans and other formal events that would honor his years of service to the country. People close to the family and friends were said to be grieving their loss first before making any final choices at the time. Graham's death also made people wonder what would happen to the work he had been leading in the Senate. He reportedly played a big part in getting big spending bills and other important laws through Congress as chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. His leadership and experience helped bring together different parts of his party on a number of important issues. Since he was said to be dead, those duties would have to be taken over by other senators. Thun said that the Senate would keep working, but he also said that it would be hard to replace Graham's knowledge, experience, and guidance. He was said to have said that Graham made every meeting and debate more interesting. Thun says Graham never thought of his work for the general good as just another job. He really cared about the causes he backed and worked hard every day to make them better. People said that Graham took on every challenge with determination, whether it was about national security, the federal courts, government spending, or other issues of public policy. Friends thought that his sense of purpose set him apart from many other politicians. Thun was also asked to talk about a personal memory that showed the kind of person he knew outside of politics. He didn't pick a well-known political event or an important Senate debate. Instead, he remembered a quiet night they spent together in South Dakota. A memory came back to him of sitting by a lake with Graham and watching the stars. Thun thought that quiet moment showed how close they were as friends after many years. It reminded him that there was a man behind the rallies, speeches, and political fights who also enjoyed spending time with close friends. As praises kept coming in from all over the country, many people thought about Graham's long career and how he affected American politics. How did the people of South Carolina, especially those who worked closely with Lindsey Graham, remember the person who was different from the politician? Wait for more. Thinking about what Lindsey Graham did for South Carolina. There were many people who remembered Senator Lindsey Graham's life and the years he spent serving South Carolina after his death was reported. Congresswoman Nancy Mays was one of them. People all over the state were shocked by the news, she said, because many thought Graham was still alive and well. She said that fans, friends, and other people were finding it hard to believe that someone who had worked hard for so many years was suddenly gone. He cared a lot about South Carolina and always fought for the people he represented, even if they didn't always agree with him. Mace said Graham was known as a strong leader who never gave up, even when things got tough. She said he was brave, funny, smart, and tough. He was always ready to fight for what he thought was right, she said. She said that he knew a lot about politics and was better at dealing with stress than most people. She thought of the time he fought hard for Brett Kavanaugh during the confirmation hearings for the Supreme Court. She said Graham spoke with confidence during that tough time, which changed the course of the debate. She thought that moment showed how brave and determined he was, which set him apart from many other leaders. Mace also said nice things about what Graham did for South Carolina. She said he always did his best to help his home state and never forgot who voted for him. Graham was someone she often turned to for help with important projects because she thought he knew how to get things done. She said he gave money to help build roads, bridges, and work along the coast of South Carolina. I wasn't able to give them what they needed. Going to Senator Graham's office is always what I would do. That's who I went to when I needed money for building roads, bridges, or canals along the coast. Her story was that Graham knew how the government worked and used that knowledge to help his home state. Mace also talked about his own thoughts of the years they spent together as friends. Graham was one of the first people she met after being elected to Congress, she said. He told her how to better serve the people and be a better lawmaker during that meeting. She told him that he became one of her teachers and continued to help her when she had to make tough choices. Appleby says that Graham thought the most important job of a leader was to help the people who voted for them. He told younger politicians over and over that politics should never come before helping people. Mace told her this was the most important thing he had ever taught her, and she still does what he says. She also talked about what would happen with Graham's Senate spot. Mace said she wasn't interested in being hired for a short time to fill the seat. She thought that the people of South Carolina should be able to grieve before politics could move on. She said that she should already told Governor Henry McMaster how sorry she was and talked about what should be done next. She said she might run for the spot again someday, but right now she made it clear that caring for Graham's family was more important. Graham was a man who loved his state, worked hard for its people, and never gave up working for the things he believed in, Mace said as she thought about his life. He served South Carolina for many years, was a strong leader, and was always ready to help others. These things will be remembered for a long time. Have you thought about what Lindsey Graham left behind in politics? Tell us what you think in the section below. Thanks for joining us as we talked about Lindsey Graham's life, work, and legacy. If you learned something from this story, please like it and subscribe. To see more stories, click on the next movie. I'll see you there.